Welcome to the Possibility Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton, aka Possibility Man. We're committed to bringing you guests who strive to better people's lives and serve as a force for good in the world. Our guest today is Dr. Amna Shabbir. She is an internal medicine primary care doctor. She's also a certified wellness and life coach and the founder of the Early Career Physicians Institute. Dr. Shabbir is passionate about preventing and managing chronic conditions, including diabetes, hypertension, and thyroid. She employs a patient centered approach to create a partnership for optimal health. As a certified wellness and life coach, she helps individuals, including doctors, learn to manage stress, practice self care, and prevent or recover from burnout. Dr. Shabbir, welcome to the show today.
Thank you for that kind introduction, Dr. Middleton. Very happy to be here.
All right. Hey, look, I'm excited to talk with you. I got a ton of questions. But first, a reminder to our listeners and our viewers, follow, like, and share this podcast wherever you find it. Your support matters and is appreciated. People hear podcasters say this, Dr. Shabbir, but it really matters. And I want them to know that their support matters for sure. Hey, there's something that you highlight wherever you go, and that is those little babies of yours. You refer to yourself as a super mom. So I want to start with that. How are your babies doing?
Thank you. They're doing well. A little older than the baby situation now. I have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old daughter.
Oh, that's wonderful. Do you still refer to yourself? I might have caught this early on as Supermom. Is that still highlighted in some of your profile on social media?
It really is because during my journey in medicine and this almost reawakening and healing journey that I took afterwards, I had to step back and assess myself as a complete human. And while I'm very proud of all my academic accolades and all the other things that I have achieved, we never get to put these things on our resume. So I decided to put that on my website and I decided to put that on my social media. I am a super mom of 2 young girls, and I'm very proud of that.
That's wonderful. That's a reminder to all of us to remember what's important. And those little ones are important to us. So cheers for Dr. Shabir. Look, when did you make the choice to study medicine? Do you recall when that happened for you?
I have been asked this question many times, and I feel that every time I go back in my memory and I'll come up with many different instances that might have happened that led me here as
Mhm.
well. Like there's that parallel journey of me as a coach, as well as a parallel journey of me as a physician. So as far as the physician life goes, my parents are physicians, and I always admired the care that they provided their patients. But I personally had some health challenges as a teenager, and where my dermatologist was very compassionate and the care that they provided me was very evident. And after that, the desire to be a physician was real. At the same time, I also was reading The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens by Sean Covey. And I looked at my mom and I said, I really like positive psychology and the neuroscience of behavior change. And this is good stuff. And coaching didn't really have a name at that time for myself. And my mother is a physician, so she looked at me and she's like, that makes no sense to me. You're becoming a doctor, and end of story. While I love what she did, I was
Mhm.
definitely inspired by that health challenge that I went through. So coupled with the very stern direction of a South Asian mother, I then decided to pursue medicine. But I think that the part of me that really enjoyed and reveled in everything that was positive psychology continued to stay there, and I continued to read many books. And so I feel that I would have become a coach regardless of whatever else happened in my life because I was so drawn to it. But those are two parallel journeys that are kind of
Yeah.
weaved together.
Yeah, I find it very interesting is that you were interested in those subjects, positive psychology, the neurosciences early on, and look at what you're doing now, positive psychology, the neurosciences as a coach and wellness educator. But I want to go back to something you said, that you said that both of your parents were physicians. I didn't know that until now. And it would seem to me that seeing that that example would have probably scared you away from medicine. I say that because of the schedules of physicians, late nights and long hours sometimes. So, but that did not intimidate you, apparently.
It did intimidate me. I would be remiss to say if it was all like beautiful and nothing bad happened. Or I think that it was very clear that what medicine required of you, and
Mm,
the amount that you have to invest in it and the whole family has to invest in it was very clear. And I think that might have dissuaded me from pursuing surgical specialties, although I enjoyed medicine, I enjoyed surgery, but there was something about being on call all the time that really prevented me from actively pursuing becoming a surgeon on any level. And there was, of course, the part of me that really enjoys general internal medicine, complex care management. But I just, it was a difficult call. And I think that the final decision for me really happened to see the lives of the surgeons around me. And absolutely, it had an impact in me. But I think it was more inspiring, sometimes aggravating as a child. You have to understand things that are not expected of other children if your parents are in medicine. And that's what caused me to take a step back when I did in my life and reassess, because I did not want to recreate what my childhood had been. So
mhm.
there was a little bit of that. And while, I mean, it wasn't anything, people have had really adverse child events, like there wasn't something like that, but having parents in medicine lends it a very different kind of, I would say, uh, childhood in general.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's great. Look, some of the people listening to this or watching this podcast show are not medical healthcare professionals. Some will be, some will not be. And people rarely get a chance to talk with doctors. So I want to ask you, what is a medical education like? What was that like for you? The education part, classroom part, but also the training beyond the classroom.
You cannot be distracted. You have to be ultimately focused at your goal, and you have to delay gratification. You'll see your friends graduating and doing all the things and getting the paychecks and doing everything else, but you have to stay focused. You have, and purely from just an education standpoint, sometimes there's no capacity to entertain anything else in your life. You have to be looking at the goal and just keeping on going. And that's just academically speaking. But then
Yeah.
there's also that very much physical toll that education takes on you, which just the way graduate medical education right now is in the United States, it's difficult. We're expected to be awake longer than other
Mhm.
humans, to operate under stressful conditions, as compared to other humans. It's very challenging. So you have to do this profession for all the right reasons. Otherwise, you cannot make it to the finish line. And you can do it for the right reasons and make it to the finish line and still want to leave because of everything
Mhm.
you've been through. So I think rigorous would be a good term, and you absolutely cannot be distracted.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you say that a medical education is also something like a calling? Is that something must be inside a person that pulls them? Would you say that?
100%. There has to be that pull. That's what's going to prevent you from getting distracted.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what's going to keep you going and staying awake. I mean, you can walk out, you can walk out of situations. And a lot of times, even when it is a higher calling, people still break and they are made to feel a certain way. And I know that I keep tilting in that direction because I don't
Hmm.
want anyone who left medicine to feel less than, because they had
Hmm.
their reasons. If you didn't get to the finish line, I still want to honor your journey. And
Yeah.
if you went to the finish line and left, I still want to honor your journey.
Hmm.
Yes, absolutely. It is a calling. It is becoming increasingly, I would say it was always difficult and it continues to be and stay difficult. And I think that with times are changing and times are evolving on the same end, we should evolve medical education. And there are definitely positive activities and actions and legislations and things that are in the works, and
Hmm.
people that are trying
Hmm.
to raise the voice and of trying to look at your physicians, not just as physicians, but also as human beings.
Yeah.
But yes, it's still a work in progress, very much.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you said that, to look at your physicians as human beings, because in my mind, and I'm not putting this on doctors, but in part, I think they're responsible. The doctors have created a special world, a special image. And what do I mean by this? You all, Dr. Shabbir, have the white coats. You all have the stethoscope. You all, write the prescriptions. You all give orders. So it's like this thing called doctors, like godlike. Come on, you all created a certain kind of world. Am I exaggerating?
You are not exaggerating because I feel I've been a patient and I've been a physician and I am a
Yeah.
physician. Like I'm standing on all different sides, and
Mm,
yes, there is that very real reverence that you have. Um, Unfortunately, I feel that reverence is getting diluted, and
mm,
also I feel that it needs to be like I am somebody who likes to build bridges. We have physicians that are burning out, and then we have patients that are suffering at the hands of the healthcare system because the physicians are burning out, the nurses are
mm,
burning out, other healthcare workers are burning out, patients are suffering. Patients don't feel that they're heard. They see the doctor in the white coat and they assume that the physician is doing everything. Like even my own friends the other day,
mm,
thought that their doctor decided not to see them. And I'm like, your doctor has no clue that the insurance company has changed something or tweaked something. There's
mm,
somebody in an office that's signing all these papers. The doctor is doing something different, but the patient's perceiving something completely different.
mm,
So
mhm,
while that prior dictatorial way of practicing medicine might have been very real, I feel that
mm.
the doctors that are practicing medicine and the up and coming classes are more attuned to practicing in a collaborative way. And that's
Yeah.
how certainly I was. I used to, like, when I was practicing primary care full time, would tell my patient to be afraid of the physician who tells them they know everything, because nobody does. And
Mhm.
medicine and medical science is
That's right.
evolving every day. So
Yeah.
I know what I don't know, but I know where to go and look for it. So
Yeah.
let's look for it together. So
Yeah.
I think that humility is very much a part of being a physician, and although this perception is there, that's also the perception that's bothering physicians so much,
Yeah.
because when you put the physician at the pedestal like that, you forget that they need to sleep, they need to use the bathroom, they have
Yeah.
families, and physician suicide is a very real epidemic that's happening right
Yeah.
now. And so I say let's collaborate and let's take the
Hmm.
physicians off the pedestals.
Hmm. Yeah. You've touched upon a number of things there, that I want you to kind of interrogate as we go further. But one thing that you said though is that, you know, patients sometimes do see physicians, and we are responsible as well as patients. I had a conversation with a cardiologist recently, just a general 2-minute conversation. I said, you guys are wise. You're a cardiologist. What do you think? You know what he said? And this surprised me. He said, well, I'm not wise. It just means that this is what I do. I just know a little more in this area, but you could be wiser than me in other areas. I said, whoa, that's interesting for a doctor. Here's what you're saying, right? Doctors are becoming, some of them are becoming more human for the good of patients as well. But let me ask you a question, Dr. Shabbir. I'm a fan of Gunsmoke, and I think from what you've said, I think I can ask you this question. It's a cowboy series back in the 60s into the early 70s, and they featured a character who was a woman and a doctor. And when she arrived in Dodge City, the doctor in the city rejected her, and some of the patients initially rejected her. Is there something in medicine, as far as you know, whereby female doctors may have the challenge of this crossing this line?
Women face challenges everywhere, and medicine is no different. Although we
Mm,
have actually studies that say that a lot of female physicians provide better care. And that would be a whole different Pandora's box if we were to open that.
yeah.
But I would say, in a nutshell, the answer is yes. And burnout in female physicians and moral
Mhm,
injury in female physicians is very real.
mhm,
Women everywhere go home and they do the third shift, whether they're
yeah,
CNAs, whether they're nurses, whether they're doctors. they're going to go home and they're going to do the third shift, which is
Yeah.
taking care of tasks at home largely still, even though the landscape of the world is changing and how we look at things as a society is changing. That's very much there. The pay gap is very much there.
Yeah.
As far as microaggressions goes towards female physicians are very much there. You I had a surgeon comment the other day on social media that I spent the entire time explaining the surgical procedure to the patient, only for the patient to ask at the end, when is the doctor coming? Because they were
Wow.
expecting somebody else to
Yeah.
show up. And so all of those things can just they can be exhausting. They can just
Hmm.
add to it. And we know that as a society, women tend to do more of the administrative tasks, more of the organizing birthdays for the people in the office kind of work. Very much that is unpaid work that's there. So I feel that in that way, medicine is no different. And
Hmm.
there again are societies and people that are talking about it. We're discussing this more, which is positive, and we are creating positive change. But
Hmm.
can change come fast enough in these kind of affairs? Maybe not, not yet.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, in the case of Gunsmoke, though, I must tell you is that the doctor, the male doctor, eventually discovered that this female doctor was excellent, and people in the community began to accept her and gravitate her more so in some cases than the male doctor. So just want to put that out there as well. But you also said something, and I guess I want to touch upon it now, is that women who are doctors, remain women. And as women, they have some of them get married, have children. So the responsibilities of a woman actually doesn't go down because she's a doctor, right? Talk to us about that. The experiences of a woman a doctor who is also a woman, and some of her dual, triple roles and the like.
Women are amazing and they're able to do so much. And when I say
Yeah.
this, I don't mean to put my male colleagues down in any way, but it's
Mhm.
just the reality of things, that the capacity that you have in terms of what you do is a lot. And I think that what bothers people is the exhaustion element, right?
Yeah.
So as I can speak from my personal experience, I never ceased to be a woman. I had two children. One of them was born during residency training. The other was born when I was practicing primary care full time. And there is this very real element of me wanting to enjoy motherhood, be present for my children, and I wanting to provide excellent care for my patients. And then not having support systems in place that can allow both to thrive. So it's, this phrase is repeated very often, that women are expected to work as if they don't have a family, and they're
Yeah.
supposed to do work at home as if they don't have work. So it's almost this feeling like you're being unfaithful to one thing if you're trying to do the other thing well. And you are juggling many roles. And I guess what's exhausting is trying to, that feeling which feeds into microaggression, that feeds into moral injury and burnout, is
Mhm.
you're also trying to prove yourself that, look at me, I'm capable, I can
Right.
do all of this, where we know that you're capable, you're more than capable, you're doing all those
Mhm.
amazing things together. I had experienced postpartum depression both time, and
Mm.
I feel that it was a very different journey that I was on, that maybe some of my other colleagues weren't on. And I know
Mhm.
that my male colleagues who also late after that reached out to me when I openly shared
Mhm.
about it, that they had gone through similar journeys as well. And so I feel that if we decide as a society to just look less focused on like man, woman, and all these things like that, and
Mhm.
just as a community, how can we create support for each other? I think that that's where things would be so much better.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was at the grocery store the other day, in fact, yesterday, and I was sitting in the car before I got and this woman got out of a car, out the driver's seat, and she walked around. She grabbed the little baby. She grabbed the baby and put the baby on her hip and just kept. I said, "Wow, boy, that really caught my attention." So women do a lot. There's no doubt about that. I want to talk now about the reality of medicine because I mean, it's attractive. We think you doctors are all millionaires, actually. You all just make up the big bucks. But it's a lot of work, isn't it? So I want to look at the life of a doctor in terms of, let's say, time management. what's the, is a doctor, does a doctor have to really pay attention to how he or she manage their time?
Absolutely. I think that, of course, it will vary by specialty. It will vary
Mhm.
with the hospital system that you're working in. It will vary if you're working yourself. And there are a lot of variables that are there, but largely, it's the way the healthcare system is completely set up is see more, churn more patients, and keep the productivity. It's like the feeling of being a cog in a machine is very real. And
Mhm.
so, and not just that, and you have to be modeling that behavior, remember that you alluded to earlier. You have to retain your grace, poise, compassion, composure while you're seeing, in some instances, over 30 patients a day with chronic medical diseases. And in the case of primary care, I'll give an example, because the primary care system is what your entire system is built on. And I feel that a lot of times that's what gets lost in translation. And I'm not saying that I have to blame the external circumstances completely. In my
Mhm.
case, I loved having dialogues with my patients, and this is what I encourage to any physician listening to this is share with your patients what you're sort of going through. Of course, like not all of it because it can be
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot, but just let them know exactly what happens in a visit. For example, if you have been given 15 minutes to see a
Mhm.
patient and you're not double booked, this is I'm talking about a good case scenario here.
Mhm.
As a patient, most of my patients did not know, like you have 20 minutes or 15 minutes from the time you check in at the front desk to the time your medical assistant takes your blood pressure, checks in your vitals, to the time that
Yeah.
you're done with the visit. And if I am not communicating that, the patient's going to be late, they get checked in late, so everyone's going to do their job, but at the end of the day I am the person who has to see the patient. And then you know how if you see one person late and then the snowball effect
Yes,
starts,
yes.
so then everyone's waiting in the waiting room, and you're getting a little angry at your doctor, like every
Mhm.
time I come here I'm waiting every time. Thankfully
Yeah.
that was not the case for my patients, because I tried to apply a lot of conversations. Some people might say I did boundary setting when it comes to that, but I want
Mhm.
every patient to have the experience that they can. And the only way I can do that, because remember, I am still human. And
Yeah.
despite all of this happening, I'm human. I can't superhumanly create extra time, fit everyone in, do all the things. So the only way we can move forward as a society from this is if we communicate
Mhm.
our confines and if we have compassion for the other person.
Mhm.
So I mean, when I'm waiting for my physician and as a patient in the healthcare system
Mhm.
and having had illnesses
Mhm.
of different varieties, it can be frustrating. I'm like, oh my God, like this, I feel the same way. I feel the same way. And as a mom, when I'm taking my kids to the doctor, if I have to do that, I feel the same way. But
Yeah.
I always have that pause for compassion that somewhere there is my colleague trying to do the best that they can.
Sure. Yeah, and you doctors, I mean, I tell you what, I give you high praise to doctors for all that you do. But at the same time, as you've said before, doctors are human beings too, and they're affected by life stressors. You've mentioned some of them. I'll just throw this out. I mean, if a doctor's driving to work and they have a flat tire, that could happen, couldn't it?
All the things. They could have a flat tire. They could have woken up with an illness themselves. And I'll give an example for myself, like a day where I have an ear infection. Both my kids have an ear infection. I feel terrible because I don't want to cancel my clinic. I have patients scheduled. Who am I going to call? If I'm not contagious and I am
Mhm.
not dying, almost like I'll give this example, I will drag myself to work. I will make sure that I have some sort of childcare arranged, but not having childcare is a very real problem. And
Mhm.
you get in the car and your gas tank's empty. Well, that's partly half your fault. But yes, you get the flat tire,
Yeah.
all the things, you get to work, parking issues. There can be an accident on the way. These are all very, like, life is happening
Yeah.
just as much to us as it's happening to the
Yeah.
next person. But for
Mhm.
these, I say you just plan as best as you can as a human. But the
Yeah.
problem is that the moment you cross the threshold and you enter the clinical space, the other
Mhm.
people might not recognize that this is also happening to you. Now, I am not saying that everyone starts sharing their personal problems with
Right.
everyone else. I think as humans, we should just look at everyone, and this can be your nurse, this can be your doctor, this can be anybody else, your coworker, just having that space for grace, like give
Mm.
the other person the benefit of the doubt and give yourself the same too.
Yeah.
Uh, be
Yeah.
compassionate to yourself as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's a delicate balance for professionals. I tell you what, you got to be this and you got to be that at the same time, because I think that some patients don't want their doctors to be a real person, you know? So it's like it cuts both ways, right? You want them to feel, okay, I'm in good hands, but at the same time, you want them to recognize that they're dealing with a person, a human being. So how then, and put on your coach hat as well as your physician hat. How does the physician then maintain that type of boundary where they are the physician, the doctor, and at the same time, they're a human being who need their space, their time, and the like. How do you do that? And also, let me throw this one complicated some more. As a parent, how do you do this and not feel guilty? How do you maintain all of this?
I think you've thrown the entire kitchen sink at me. But I'm
I'm
going to try
trying
to,
to.
I'm going to answer it as best as possible. I think that separating our roles can be important in terms of giving you clarity. What is expected of me as a mother? What is expected of me as a physician? What is expected of me for caring for myself? First, looking at them, what I recommend is almost like an audit. You do an audit of what your life looks like and what you want
Mm,
it to look like. So what it's right now, and you just have to remind yourself to be very factual and be neutral.
mm, mm,
And then look at your whole self. Okay, now, yes, I put my mom hat on and my daughter hat on and my doctor hat on. And now when I merge all of this together, how do I look like as a complete human? And
mm,
then you want to ask yourself, because no one can do everything. And if there's somebody who's pretending to do everything, they're dropping balls all the time. So
mm,
you have to ask yourself, realistically speaking, what are some of the things I can start removing? Are there extra projects I can say no to? And if you can say no to it, then ask for help. Ask for help, get coached, ask somebody else, ask a friend, ask a colleague. So for work, I would say, see what are the things that you can limit. And I am solely talking from an individual standpoint because we know that the system in which this individual is working is broken. It's
mm,
one of my favorite quotes is from Dr. Heather Farley, who says that don't, I'm going to be paraphrasing and not kill the quote here, but you can't just take the canary out of the coal mine, teach it resilience skills, and put it back there. The
mm,
systems have to change. So while it's a two-way thing. So all of these would be from an individual standpoint, but for anyone who is listening to this, who is a leader in healthcare, please
mm.
take care of your employees. That includes physicians.
Yeah.
For the non-medical folks that are listening to this, if you are wondering that you go and seek care at a doctor's office and every doctor just leaves after a couple of months, or the nurse practitioner leaves, or the physician assistant leaves, or even like the medical assistants, like if there's
Yeah.
turnover happening all the time, ask yourself this question: why is this happening? Instead of getting angry, which I
Mm,
mean, you have a right to anger. Losing a
mm,
good primary care physician, I've been there. It can be so frustrating.
mm,
If somebody told me my kid's pediatrician is leaving, I'm probably going to have a massive tantrum because I love her so much.
right.
It's okay to have that, but I want you to channel that energy into
Mm,
asking the questions, why are these healthcare workers leaving this organization? And
mm,
what is being done to take care of them? Because that's a pattern. And if you're picking patterns up, that's very obvious. And if you're not picking patterns up, I would still ask yourself, how can you advocate? You
mm,
ask the organizations, you know why? This is not because you're just being nice. This is
mm,
direct care as a consumer, because
mm,
you are the consumer of this healthcare system.
mm,
I am a consumer. I have also been a patient. And when our physicians are burning out and leaving, when our other
mm,
healthcare workers are burning out and leaving, we as a society are being impacted greatly. The
mm,
physician shortages that are projected are going to get extremely worse. It's extremely disturbing.
yeah.
scenario. So while there is this very real moral case of caring for each other that includes our physicians, there's also a very real system-wide case to be made to care for our physicians and other healthcare workers.
Yeah. I'm glad that you're doing what you do because you're a doctor, and I would say you're probably a very good one. But in addition to this, you strike me as being more than a doctor, is that you see the big picture. And I hope that administrators and leaders surely at least consider the kinds of things that you're saying. But Dr. Shabbir, I've noticed, though, that you are, gosh, transparent about a few things. You've talked about, for example, postpartum depression. You've talked about burnout and your personal experience with it. And of course, you offer solutions, you offer things about recovery. So can you talk, well, first, let me ask you, at what point in your career, that you are a well-trained professional, at what point in your career did you say, something, I'm going to talk about my human experiences with the aim of supporting others? At what point did that happen for you?
I stayed silent for so long
Mm,
because I wanted to be perceived as that perfect doctor that you alluded to earlier. I
mm,
wanted to be perceived as the model human, female physician,
mm,
whatever we want to call, whatever role we want to give. But I think that the word that comes to my mind is flawless. And
mm,
when I was actually in the thick of all my experiences with postpartum depression and burnout, the external world, other than maybe 4 or 5 people closest to me who I shared with, even they like didn't. Maybe my husband, he probably knew everything. But the world was not seeing that. And I wanted to keep that cloak of perfectionism on, absolutely. And trying to stay flawless and trying to be
mm,
perfect and trying to do all the things can be very isolating and very exhausting. So when I realized this, that it's not just me, because there are this is maladaptive perfectionism is rampant in
mm,
a lot of high achieving professionals, not just physicians, and from a very early age. So when I realized that there are things that need to be done, and I just don't want another human to feel as alone as I did.
mm,
And in my journey, I think I felt the loneliest after I was done with residency and I started off as an early career physician. I felt very lonely at that time. So my entire calling in terms of coaching paired that with, okay, I really want to nerd out and learn more about behavior change. So I want to, combine the two. I realized that there was a lot that needed to be done in that
mm.
specific space. And that's how I found myself here.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there's something on your wall. I want to read it, but there are a lot of things, more things that we got to talk about before you have to go. But this is a good time for me to draw some attention. I'm looking at a poster on your wall. It says, "Life isn't about finding yourself; it's about creating yourself." Now, why is that important to you, and why do you display that? Because it seems to me that this fits in to a lot of what you do as a professional today.
We're constantly waiting for things to happen. We're going to find the motivation. We're going to wait to feel encouraged to then
Mm,
take the next step that needs to be taken. And that's how we're going to succeed. Mostly that's what we perceive. Why we're not going to the gym, we're not motivated enough. Why are we not actually advocating for ourselves at work? Because someday we're going to find that courage, or we don't
mm,
have that courage because your other colleague who can maybe speak a little louder, is a bit more clear, they can set
mm,
boundaries. They're not for you. So
mm,
constantly this feeling of waiting is what I absolutely detest. And I
mm,
decided that no more. I am actually going to create everything that needs to be done. And I think
mm,
that that's something I consciously, with all the learning and reading I was doing at a very early age, have done all my life. And with coaching, I have just found better words for it because that's exactly what I was doing in setting intentions and telling
mm,
myself that I'm going to go do this. And then trying to navigate actual steps that I can break
mm,
down and make very small and applicable, and then doing the thing. Or
mhm,
and I can like apply it to everything. So I feel that in our life, we have this amazing, precious life. a lot of time we're just waiting. We're just
Mm,
waiting for things to get better. We're waiting for people around us to change. We're waiting to get a new job. We're waiting to go to a new city, get a new house, and we're waiting and we're waiting. And I say, let's stop doing that. So
mm,
this is where this one of my favorite quotes comes in, that life isn't about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself. If you are
mm,
going to just hide behind analysis and cross analysis, you can keep doing that till eternity. If you decide
yeah.
today, okay, I have autonomy. I can take this next step. I can go, do this little thing that I really want to do, because the only
Right.
way to go do that thing is by actually doing it, not reading
Mm,
about it, not waiting to get motivated, not all the other
yeah.
things. It's actually going and doing the thing.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I tell you what, when you said we have autonomy, I felt it in my gut. Oh yeah, agency. I love it. I really felt that. Hey, look. So I know, as I said in my introduction, that you have a passion for managing, helping patients manage, chronic conditions, and I mentioned a few: type 2 diabetes, hypertension, cholesterol, thyroid. Um, how? Well, obviously, you believe that a patient can learn to manage these things or even reverse them. Let's look at just one at a time, if you don't mind. What about, let's say, type 2 diabetes? If you want to put it diabetes, and that's fine with me. What kinds of ways do you help patients manage that condition, or even, if possible, in their case, reverse it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I just want to quickly preface this by saying that I was practicing primary care full
Mm,
time, and I did that for about 4 years. And then I
mm,
pivoted, and now I practice as a geriatrician. I
mhm,
went back to fellowship, and now I care more for folks in my clinical responsibilities are more in the nursing home and rehab space. But as someone who practiced internal medicine full time, and who, absolutely diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, these are bread and butter of what we're seeing that in this day and age.
mhm,
My philosophy comes back to the word that I used earlier, which is autonomy and agency. Because contrary to what happens, it's like a lot of times we dread going to the doctor because what we're going to find out. And then when we
mhm,
find out, we go through what I would say a stage of like grief almost, that, oh my God, I
mhm,
got diagnosed with this. And the reaction is, we have some action takers, some people who don't want to talk about it, and the various degrees. I completely and firmly believe that as a human, you have a lot of autonomy over your illness, and you have more power than actually your physicians, because we just give
mhm,
information. You are
yeah,
going to be the one who executes. And if I may say that
mhm,
a wellness coach fits right in that mixture, because
mhm,
between what the doctor is telling you to do and what you want to do, there is this chasm that has to be traversed. And it's
mhm,
not knowledge, it's not education a lot of times, because with the internet, there's a lot of information out there. There are a lot of actually good, reliable websites. For example,
mhm,
American Diabetes Association has great material on its websites, and you can go and read. But why aren't you reading? And why aren't you
mhm,
taking that action? And this is not an opportunity to now start self-criticism and berating yourself
mhm,
for not
mhm,
actually taking that step. This is a moment of reflection and compassion for yourself, because the human brain is wired in a way. Introduce that concept of motivational triad. A lot of people have
mhm,
heard about it, in which the way that we're wired is to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and conserve energy. And that's how we just keep on going, doing what we're doing. We're
right,
conserving energy. So when you get that diagnosis of diabetes, you don't want to change at that time, and that's
right,
okay. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with you, or initially you have that reaction like, oh my God, I am diabetic, I gotta fix my health, I have to like throw everything away. And then 3 months later you find yourself falling back into those patterns. It's
mhm,
hard to sustain the change. So knowing that it's not an inherent moral flaw on your behalf, your doctor is giving you information, but after that, there's so much that needs to be done by you. And you
right,
can seek help in terms of coaching, and with a health coach or a wellness coach, and you can go talk to a nutritionist. Don't get overwhelmed. What is one thing that you can start doing today? Maybe it is maybe the first step is just following what the doctor is saying, like start with the
Mhm.
meds and then looking at your life and the lifestyle changes that you can do and incorporate. But it can be so overwhelming. I have been handed large diagnoses and sometimes they were not handed in the most appropriate manner,
Mhm.
despite being a physician, which is a surprise. But then you just shut down at that time. You're just like, there's there in my case, I cried, there was grief, then
Mhm.
there's like, why is this happening to me? I'm a doctor. And then you're
Mhm.
just like, you go through all the stages. It's okay. And people just take it for granted. These are chronic illnesses. When you say, oh, I got diabetes, maybe it doesn't land as severely as if you say, I have cancer. And not
Mhm.
that I am comparing the two, but suffering is suffering. And
Mhm.
be compassionate to somebody who's sharing that they got, diagnosed with
Mhm.
diabetes. The
Mhm.
compassion should always be there for all of us.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So, you've mentioned coaching a few times. I know that's a part of your passion as well. So I want to jump right at it. I can't lose this opportunity. Wellness coach, you're a wellness coach. Life coach, you're a life coach. And I'm just curious, is there a difference or is it about the same thing? Are we talking about the same thing?
Yeah, great question. So, I think as a life coaching, you would look at almost like a larger life
Mhm.
situation. They
Mhm.
help you set goals and achieve and obstacles, overcoming all of that. So that's how I
Mhm.
would look at as a life coach. And that would include thought management if you're having a lot of stress. Wellness coaches then further kind of almost, I would say,
Mhm.
subspecialize underneath it.
Okay.
And they like to
Mhm.
work more in terms of like holistic health and
Ah,
specifically to health challenges. Now, one can argue and say that mental well-being is very much in there. So thought management and that stress management comes in there as well.
yeah.
So yes, the lines are intersecting very much. But if you are looking at chronic disease management, I would suggest looking at a health coach or a wellness coach. I also, if you're looking for a more credible source, there are a lot of the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaches has a website that's going to have coaches that they have certified and coaches that have gone through training
Mhm.
programs that they have certified. Like you can look at certification statuses of a coach if you are interested in that. A lot of primary care offices also now allow you to get referred to one. So there are options. All of this is basically, what is
Yeah.
this? This is all about, we're talking about agency and autonomy. And if
Yeah.
all of this sounds overwhelming to you, don't
Mhm.
do it. Do
Yeah.
what sounds doable. This is
Mhm.
just options for support. I feel like going back to that quotation about finding yourself and creating yourself, it goes back to that. If after leaving your doctor's office and talking to the nutritionist after being handed the diagnosis of diabetes, you can
Mhm.
sit and you can process and you can create a plan and you can follow it, power to you. You are amazing.
Mhm.
And if you cannot and you need help, I also want to honor your journey. There is help available. The
Mhm.
the third thing is just waiting, right? The waiting is not going to make your diabetes better.
Yeah.
The waiting is never helping anyone. So
Mhm.
I say do yourself a favor and make a decision. The
Yeah.
limbo is where the problem's all happening.
Mm-hmm. I love that, especially honor your journey. That's powerful for sure. So this landed for me this way, and it helped me fix it if it's not quite right. I hear you say for wellness coach, life coach, that a life coach could be big picture. And what's the vision for your life? Where are you going? What are your goals? That's what landed for me. And if I have a problem with, let's say, type 2 diabetes or whatever, then I may want to look at a more specialized type of coaching. Am I getting that right? Did I feel that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Mhm.
you did. And the reason I went for both those certifications was
Mhm.
physicians really are struggling in a lot of different
Okay.
domains. So I
Mhm.
tend to intertwine both of them are based on a lot of principles of motivational interviewing, positive
Mhm.
psychology. There are specific skill sets that you apply. I like
Mhm.
to combine both when I'm working with my clients. So I think that it's really, really important for everyone to know that they have so many options. Like when you go out and you find a coach, there can be just somebody who helps people only with diabetes. They can be somebody who just helps men's health, women's health, menopause. It could be anything. You can pick any, like the options are endless these days.
Mm-hmm.
And just trying to ask them where they're certified, what are the skills that they use. I think that's an appropriate skill question you want to ask, because you want to know the person who's helping you is credible. Like that's an important, and there are bodies out there that are certifying individuals that are credible like that. But then it's you, and the
Yeah.
possibilities are endless.
Ooh, oh my gosh, the possibilities are endless. Dr. Shabbir, so look, let's say that someone says to you, well, I got a good friend, and this good friend, I know there's a good friend can be a coach, but this good friend is is a friend automatically a coach? What would you say to that?
Oh, great question. So while I have friends, I am not
Mhm.
their coach.
Uh-huh.
You want your friend, friendship is different because you want your friend to commiserate with you. You go
Mhm.
and you vent. Like that's what I would say. If there's somebody you or some situation you hate, you sit with them. And I want my friend to hate that situation with me. Like understand this with me. It's more of understanding, it's more of hearing. But a coach does not see you through preconceived lens. There's a lot of objectivity
Mhm.
and there's a certain skill set that they use, and they're going to help you get to your goals. While a
Mm.
friend might not call a spade in that situation, because they're like, well, I know you're telling me the situation, but I they might be judging you. You always exaggerate things. It's not as dramatic. A coach will help you
Mhm.
streamline. And I
Mhm.
would just look at it like this. You have a problem. You want to go
Mhm.
from point A to point B.
Mhm.
Going from point A to point B with
Mhm.
objectivity, using your own
Yeah.
resources and not advice. Because see what happens is the same thing.
Mhm.
I can tell you, as a physician, I give orders, right? A lot of times you're
Yeah.
writing orders, you're giving orders, and then this thing it doesn't happen. Go,
Mhm.
please eat 2,300 milligrams of sodium. You're hypertensive now. That's the DASH diet. Please go follow it. And then
Mhm.
it doesn't actually happen. I can write it, I can scream it, I can do whatever I want with it. I can say,
Mhm.
oh, I'm a board certified, da da da, da. I can whatever, but it's not happening. So
Yeah.
between me saying all that and you doing it, there is a gap that needs to be filled. And
Mhm.
that's where a coach jumps in, because a coach is going to
Mhm.
say, well, your physicians made these recommendations.
Mhm.
What is standing in your way? And
Mhm.
this is a nutshell, this is not an actual coaching question, but like they're going to work with you to
Yeah.
find out why that thing is not working for you and how can you make it work.
Yeah.
So there
Yeah.
is that gap that is traversed. Your friend is also going to say, like, man, like your doctor told you this. You know, if you don't do this, you're going to get a heart attack. Go do it.
Mhm.
A
Yeah.
good friend might say that. Another friend might, if they're going to stay in the space of like they just want you to be able to share, they might not
Mhm.
even want to say that because you might get angry at them and stop being their friend.
Yeah. I tell you what, it's landing for me. I may have it wrong, but I'm going to repeat it back. I want you to correct me if I got it wrong. You're saying what I felt is that you're saying, look, if you want to vent, go talk with your friend if you want to. If you just want to rant, go do that. But if you're ready to get to work, see a coach.
Yeah.
Did it land right for me, or did I miss something?
I think you paraphrased it beautifully and directly.
Hey, look, what about if a client comes to you, you're a coach now,
Mhm.
you are a life coach now, you got that hat on. A client comes to you and say, something, I feel like an imposter. I've spent all these years in school, but I just don't feel that I'm good enough. I know you don't coach me out of it, but what kinds of things could you help a person get a better sense of who they are and feel better about themselves?
Often we're looking for answers outside. And even a lot of times when you'll go to a coach, you're thinking that they're going to give you the secret sauce. There's like some handbook. There are like 3 steps in this day and age of like quick fixes. I'm going to get
Mhm.
some instant gratification, a plan. I would beg to differ. The answer that you're looking for elsewhere actually lies within you very much, and
Mhm.
you know yourself and your brain more than any other human ever can. So, as a
Mhm.
coach, I'm the first thing, and you mentioned imposter syndrome.
Mhm.
It's it all comes back to the matter of belonging and mattering and knowing your
Mm-hmm.
own self-worth. If you were that confident in who you are and you practiced self-compassion and you had self-confidence and you
Mm-hmm.
had the intersection
Mm-hmm.
of this experience, right? Imagine being in a truly trusting and loving relationship. You know this person always has your back. You can do
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Your mom might not ever see anything wrong with you. It's everything is good when it comes to your mother, your grandmother, or that loving friend or your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine having that kind of relationship with yourself.
Wow. Wow. That's all I could say. Okay. Look, I know that the Early Career Physicians Institute is your baby. You're the founder, you're the CEO. First question, why did you establish this organization?
My goal was to reach back out to the human I was a couple of years ago, and it's the versions of all of those early career physicians and really embrace her and let her know she's not alone. So,
Mhm.
in a very selfishly selfless way, I would
Mhm.
phrase it like that. I am reaching back out and helping the person I was. And
Mm.
I believe that it's not one way that we can arrive to that destination. I believe that there are multiple different ways that can be done. One
Yes.
of the primary ways in which I offer support is through coaching. Other
Mm.
things that I do are offering classes and workshops and a lot of other future growth opportunities that are going to be there too. I invite experts on monthly well-being Q&As that I have in which they come and talk to early career physicians about different possibilities because well-being is not just one way. You can manage burnout by being financially independent, legally
Mm.
independent, aware of your rights, investing in real estate, doing all kinds of fun things, starting your own practice, becoming an
Mm.
entrepreneur. So these are all like my vision is really for early career physicians to feel
Mm.
supported. And I'm excited for the organization. It's a baby. And as it takes off and we add more things, I'm very excited for what the future holds.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. I think for any employee, any professional, it's a wonderful thing to learn how to get started on the right foot, so to speak, and you help them get started on the right foot. Now, would you coach a person who's not a doctor, or do you mainly want to coach doctors?
I love coaching. So I think that might be the cornerstone of my belief. And
Mhm.
I have clients that have not been physicians. I've absolutely coached them and enjoyed with them. So
Mhm.
while I prefer to coach early career physicians, I also have clients that are really in their 70s. So it doesn't mean that there is a cutoff, but this is where I am attracting more of my energy. But of course,
Mhm.
if there's anyone interested and they're driven and they want to
Mhm.
change, I would love to cheer them on. And if I am not the right coach for them, I know a lot of very phenomenal coaches I would be happy to refer. We're a community. I don't look
Mhm.
at it as, I have to go and be that one human. I it was just talking to so many incredible physician coaches. I'm part of many communities that are like that and non-physician coaches.
Mhm.
So I also love being a connector. I know many healthcare workers and non-healthcare workers that are doing
Mhm.
such fabulous job in this space. What I look at is this way. I have deep love for humanity. I
Mhm.
I think that as humans, if we have
Mhm.
means and resources and we can truly live a most amazing life in which we have control and autonomy and we exhibit it and we're
Mhm.
not really giving into a lot of the things that society makes us believe that we don't have control. For example,
Mhm.
staying in the space of chronic diseases, it can be very disempowering to be told that now you have diabetes, you have morbid obesity, you have metabolic syndrome. Go home and deal with this diagnosis. And if I can create that space for connecting a human with another human so that they can get help and get better, there is nothing more
Mhm.
beautiful. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to just be me. There's so many incredible humans out there
Mhm.
doing this work.
I tell you what, you have evolved, since you started your medical practice. I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing now. Um, have you written any books? I know you got a ton of books in you. Are you writing any? Do you have any out there?
Maybe I should set my intention publicly. I started writing a book in fifth grade, which was a
Okay.
fiction novel. And it did not complete because after a couple of years, I decided to be a physician and I suppressed writing for very long. I
Hmm.
do have a weekly newsletter at this time in which I try to do a mixture of video and audio, actually, video, audio, and written form for my subscribers. And the name is Early Career Physician Wellness. You can go on my site and have access
Okay.
to it. But this question has been asked before, and
Yeah.
I'm going to say I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic at some point.
Okay. Well, look, I know a book is in you. Several of them. Anyway, that's another subject. One last thing before you leave. I know that you offer, free strategy sessions. I'm going to put it out there. It's on your website somewhere. Free strategy sessions. Can anyone, fill out the form and get access to you for at least one session and see where they go from there? Are you still offering it, by the way? And I hope we didn't put you on the spot there.
No, no, that's absolutely true. I think there is incredible power in strategizing, and that's why
Mhm.
I'm calling it a free strategy session because the intent is still the same. Let's get moving. Let's do this. Let's
Mm.
strategize. You have a
Uh-huh.
problem. You've been sitting on the fence. Let's talk about it. So
Yeah.
I think that you owe it to you. Like if there are resources like that, why not check them out?
Yeah.
They're primarily intended again for my physician and healthcare worker audience, but if it
Mhm.
intrigues you, you're welcome. You're welcome to come and connect with me.
Yeah. And that's fantastic. Look, I tell you what, you inspire me. In fact, I'm not sure if you recall, but I met you, discovered you on LinkedIn, that professional website, and you were telling a story about your journey. I could have been weight loss or something. I said, boy, I gotta talk to her. We didn't even get to that one, so that means that I got to get you back at another time. So you really inspire me, Doc. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
It has been my pleasure.
Okay, well, you've been listening to the Possibility Action Network podcast. Our guest today has been Dr. Amna Shabbir. I'm your host, Stephen Middleton. Until next time, good day